I'm here today with Daniel Feiman of Build It Backwards Consulting. I'm really excited to hear from Daniel because we talked a little bit pre turning the mic on about how both of us are passionate about business, passionate about helping people achieve their potential. And I want to hear directly from Daniel, who's an author of multiple books, the book on business from A to Z, the book on improving productivity, fair or foul, and how to really obtain financing for your business. So I know all of those are really critical. And we're going to try to keep it real focused because he and I could go down a number of paths. And the first path is just going to be my favorite thing. So Daniel, talk to me about how you have successfully driven growth for companies. Just tell a success story or two of how you've driven revenue growth.
Absolutely, Dave, would love to. Uh, we go in and we ask questions. What is their biggest pain point? What problems do they have? How we can really help. So over the years, because I left commercial banking 29 years ago to start this consultancy, and I did so to allow me to make a real sustainable difference with clients. So we've developed models over the years to help our clients actually not only create a plan, but implement the plan and build in accountability so they can measure their success as they're going along. And if they're not achieving their objectives, it's very clear. So they've got an accountability model that's built into their plan. And as long as they execute it, and usually either I will facilitate or they'll have a champion internally who will facilitate taking them from where they were to where they'd like to be in a sequence of steps. So it's very transparent, it's very clear where they're going, and the accountability piece is a true difference maker. And that's how we've been able to help organizations of all different types in 31 different countries, actually, drive revenue growth over the years.
That's impressive. Now, talk to me about that because I know with accountability for any of us, even those of us that are do-it-yourself, bootstrap type people, we're helped when we're in a CEO mastermind group or we're in some kind of cohort that gives us accountability. Talk about how when you come into a company, let's just make one up, say they do 15 million in annual revenue. So they're big enough that they're doing some stuff, but still small enough that you kind of know everybody in the company. Talk to me about how you would tackle accountability at a company like that.
Well, we start by setting up the long-term goals. So the name of the company, as you mentioned, is Build It Backwards, which is not only the name of the company, but how we actually work. So let's say, Dave, I come into your firm. Service or product does not make a difference. We sit down and say, what is your ideal horizon in 10, 15, 20 years? Where do you want to be in a perfect world? Let's write that up on the wall and then reverse engineer it, literally build it backwards to today and create from the long-term objectives and goals, very specific short-term goals and objectives that have to be measurable, have to have an owner, someone who's going to take responsibility. And we literally create a spreadsheet with them. We measure every month their progress towards their short-term goal, which is then a step towards their medium and their long term. So when you sit down and, for example, very commonly have a monthly meeting, and each owner of an initiative has to stand up in front of their peers and either say, this is why I'm on track, we all applaud, or why I'm off track and what help I need to get back on track to hit my number for the next period. So it's peer accountability by setting up an objective sequence of steps to get to the objectives that everyone agrees upon.
Mhm.
So it seems to work on a pretty consistent basis.
Now, when 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would hear a lot about planning like that, and people would talk long range. In the last 5 to 10 years, you hear a lot of people say, well, 10 years out is so different today than 10 years out in 1995 was. So do you get any pushback where someone says, well, can we do this for 3 to 5 years out?
Absolutely, Dave. I'm laughing because this just came up last week with a brand new client. He said, I don't know what's going to happen next week. I sure as heck am not going to do 10-year planning. So I sat there for a second and reminded him of that old expression. This comes out from, was it Dwight D. Eisenhower said, plans are worthless, but planning is essential. So
Hmm.
you create a plan, understanding we're going to modify things. We're going to modify the tactics throughout, but you still should have some long-term horizon. Yes, there's going to be bumps in the road, there's going to be adjustments, but unless you have your eye on the prize, as it were, unless you really focus on a long-term goal, you have no real direction. So
Mhm.
let's take a service firm, a law firm, as an example, or an accounting firm. Do you want to be a regional firm? You want to be a national firm? You want to be a specialty firm? Okay, what does that look like? Yes, there are going to be some surprises in a year and a month. This afternoon, you make little tweaks, but you still are focused on where you want to take the organization. So I agree. In the short term, there's all types of little bumps, but that truly, I don't think is materially different than it was 10 or 20 years ago if you want to look at it strategically versus tactically. If you want to
Mhm.
control your future, you think long term and you act short term.
Mhm. I love it. Now, I love marketing, so I want to just ask a couple questions from that standpoint. Talk to me about how you personally segment your target markets. What are your, say, three kind of ideal customer profiles?
Well, it's interesting today compared to when I started my firm, and I'm probably not different from many of my clients and many of yours, is you start off day one, you'll do anything to pay the rent. And then you gradually figure out what you're actually good at and what the market really needs, and you narrow things down over time. Going back to my commercial banking days, we service virtually anyone who is in our geographic market. And I'm in Southern California, so most of our clients are local, but it seems that they seem to fall into three specific buckets. Manufacturing firms, and California is the largest manufacturing state in the country. Service firms, there's more law firms than any other service firms, and then virtually everybody else. But again, the vast majority of clients are here in Southern California and they diminish as we go across the country. But I'm looking up at my whiteboard here. I've got clients now in 17 different states.
Hmm,
So with virtual meetings like you and I are having right now, there's an awful lot we can do that we used to have to do face to face.
correct. Tell me how you have grown the business. It's quite impressive that you've been in multiple countries and right now you're in 17 states. How do you land new clients?
It's come as a result of that old domino theory. You do something and then you leverage that. I mean, you've got a marketing background. You're a marketing expert. You're the guy that everybody should go to for marketing. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But I started doing international seminars early in my banking days. I had been approached and it sounded intriguing. So I went down to Mexico City on a weekend and did a program. Well, that led to an article, and the article led to something else. And then when I was teaching at UCLA, where I taught for 25 years, I wrote my first book because I needed to answer some of the finance questions that weren't in the big textbooks. So one publication led to the next publication, which led to the next opportunity.
Mhm.
And I mean, I walked into Mattel because one of their mid-level managers had been in one of my finance courses at UCLA. That led to another opportunity that led to somebody that said, "Well, would you like to come to London and do a program?" So it's doing what you do, publicizing what you do,
Mhm.
writing. And so I've been interviewed on a variety of, media over the years,
Mhm.
but now, and you can see over my left shoulder, my fourth book, is this my fourth or my fifth? I've started to lose count. It's as you come up with models and ways to make a difference, you share those with the world. And somebody picks up a book and goes, "Well, that sounds interesting, but I can't do it myself. Let me call Feiman." So it's a matter of putting yourself out there, using different media, leveraging your contacts, and being able to say yes when the right opportunity comes along and no when the right opportunity isn't there, but you can refer them to someone else.
Well, I've loved a lot of what you said, particularly when you said when we start out our businesses, we all have these altruistic things that we're going to do certain things. And then when you start having to make payroll and everything, you take whatever kind of clients you can, then you grow from that and narrow it down. And sometimes we still take clients we probably shouldn't be taking. But what I really like about the process is you can tell you are a marketer, a manager, a leader, and a financial expert, which is a great combination. So I want you to talk a little bit about how you've already given some of this, but tell us how important storytelling has been throughout your career and throughout your life, because you're telling a great story now and you've got books and everything. Talk about storytelling.
If if we couldn't tell stories, I'd still probably be working in a tropical fish store like I did in high school. Um, we, as human beings, I am told, and everything I've read, and the people that fascinate me, tell stories. That's how information tradition has passed down for thousands of years. We're used to hearing stories as we're young and then telling stories to the next generation. It's how we communicate, it's how we develop culture. And I've been fascinated by some of the people that I've listened to over the years and still do today. And as I started to leave commercial banking and needed to find a way to be successful in my firm, as I've worked in different countries and worked in different industries, finding ways to relate to people and have them relate to the message that you're trying to bring across is critical. And that's storytelling. You know, I was walking in the desert, saber-toothed tiger bit me in the butt, and you go from, well, instantly. And I was talking to a group a few weeks ago, and I started off with, so I was sitting in a bar in Dubai. Suddenly you've got everybody's attention. Happened to be a true
Exactly.
story. Because that's not where I usually would be, but I happened to be there. The bartender asked me a question. We got in a conversation. Suddenly there was a trivia contest. I ended up walking out with a signature knife. Wasn't my goal, but it was a fascinating evening, and that led to a further conversation.
Love it. Well, one of the things that I've had the opportunity to do, and I wanted to get your take on this, so I got excited whenever I saw your background. I've had multiple companies that we helped them grow, our team helped them grow, and of course, the leadership team drove the growth. They're the most significant pieces, always the leadership team at the company. But our team can help with a lot of revenue growth and personal growth and brand growth and talent growth. Multiple times I've had where they weren't quite getting what they wanted when they wanted to sell, and I've been able to come in and change the presentation, change the narrative, change the story, and see that number go up. So I wanted to see your thoughts on that about how significant it is for storytelling in the financial world when you're asking for money or asking someone to buy something, to buy a company.
I will share a story that is not new in that regard. When I got into commercial banking, I was young and naive, and I learned the three C's of banking, three C's of finance, which is cash flow, credit, and collateral. By the time I wrote my first book on finance, I had expanded that to seven C's. One of them is compassion. And most people, when I say that, they have a quizzical look. Compassion is you want your lender, you, Dave, you want to expand your business, you want to acquire another agency. So you go to your banker, you want a line of credit. They have to understand where you're going. They need to understand your passion, your direction, and be your advocate inside the bank to get your loan approved. So you've got to tell them a story that they will buy into. Not that you make anything false, but you need to develop a bit of passion on their part. They want to help you, Dave, because you're doing some good. You're creating jobs. You're saving a company. Damn, I want to help Dave. That's why storytelling is so important in the world of finance because there's more people that want money than the banks are going to loan it to. They always want to loan money. The question is to whom? You or someone else?
That's why people need to talk to you, Daniel Feiman from Build It Backwards Consulting. Daniel, I wanted to keep this short where you and I could go on forever, but I wanted you get some of the key nuggets from you to help people that watch this so they can learn how to build it backwards. Thank you for being with me today, and thank you, the viewers and listeners, for taking the time to be with Daniel and I.
Thanks very much, Dave. I appreciate it.